In 2017, Nier Automata was released to tremendous competition, competing with major titles at the time: Zelda Breath of the Wild, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Mario Space Odyssey, all now legendary titles. And releasing on the Nintendo Switch only greatened the disadvantage. However, Nier Automata did go on to win a multitude of honors at the 2017 Game Awards, one being the award for Best Score. In this video, I'll be telling you why I believe Nier Automata's OST is an unheralded masterpiece. A rich and dark tinted score piercing out of a vast dystopian land. That is one sentence to capture the music of Nier Automata. It's composed by Keichi Okabe, a legendary video game composer and known for some of the most iconic tracks in video game history. He debuted at Namco in 1994, now known as Bandai Namco, composing the OST for the popular arcade game Spiral Fall, which later led him on to create the Tekken 2 and Tekken 3 iconic soundtracks. It's also not his first time working with the Nier IP. He also created the soundtrack for Dragon Guard 3, so he's truly a veteran and a titan in the gaming world. Now about the song, Weight of the World. It's an epic ending to an incredible gaming experience, and I know words cannot describe the feeling of playing this game all the way through, and then hearing this masterpiece in 8-bit format, leaving you a baby in tears. And it's understandable, the lyrics are so well written and the instrumentation is made to elevate all your emotions, sucking you into that crippling feeling of loneliness as soon as you return to your real life. Like most of the songs on the OST, we adopt a minor key, vamping between A minor 9 and F major. A vamp is a repetition of a short musical idea for those who didn't know. And from there the song is fleshed out into a more complex place harmonically. Not to mention his love for piano and guitar is evident as well. Many of his tracks duel between piano and guitar, occupying the same space harmonically. This is not a particularly bad thing, but I do find it interesting having those two textures sonically in the same space. Between the melancholic piano and dramatic percussion parts, there's an evident vibe that tells you that this is the emotional release of the soundtrack. This is a term that I've just made up, so humor me for a second. I'm sure you're familiar with this graph on screen right now, probably from your English teacher. It shows rising conflict, climax, and conclusion. I would like to use similar logic to make comparisons to the entire soundtrack, using beginning as the more mellow section of the OST, rising action as the uplifting section of the OST, climax reserved for boss battles and intense moments, and finally the emotional release, the afterglow section and the ending of the game. I've categorized every track into these sections with some minor exceptions. Now that point's across, Weight of the World is serving as the emotional release at the end of the game to make you feel, well, emotions. So you know that playing this game was worth your time. Nier really makes you believe that the soundtrack was just as integral to the story as the characters itself. Games like Tekken, Dragon Ball Z, and Sonic have extremely iconic soundtracks that are just as iconic as the IP itself. And to speak more on the harmony, Okabe does tend to keep it quite simple. All the notes of Weight of the World just walk up the A minor scale and fit the chords quite perfectly. That being said, he still doesn't stray away from the more experimental ideas It just adds more layers to his composing rather than defines it. If you were to ask me why I believe the Nier Automata OST to be a masterpiece, I'd tell you that there's never a boring moment listening to each diverse track unfold. I am yet to find a soundtrack with a more diametrically opposed selection of songs. Like, take Emil's Shop, for example. Where the heck does this song fit in a trophy case of epic compositions? And that's exactly what I mean. Emil's Shop, Memories of Dust, and other interesting compositions all add layers to an OST. Too often do you find composers composing the same song for an entire runtime. A rich diversity in every track is essential to not suffocate the listener in what would feel like a constricting dark tunnel. They are joyful tunes sung by young children and more emotionally advanced tunes sung by women to convey the emotional maturity and reflect the characters in the game and story. It's always a sign of a masterful composition when one can capture ideas and landscapes visible in media like games, movies, and anime, and be able to translate it so convincingly onto a sheet of music. And that's why I believe that Nier Automata is a masterpiece. It's been praised, but I still feel it's underrated when it comes to talks of legendary OSTs in games. But what the hell do I know? I'm just a jazz musician.